What's up, everybody? This is part two of Jeffrey Epstein. Hey, I had to do this, man. I had to do a part two because I went back and listened to part one. And if you listen to this one, you're probably listening to it on YouTube. But if you want to hear part one, go and check out the Black Men in Suits Urban Nation Uncut Truth podcast, streaming on all podcast platforms. But I had to do this part two because this is one of those things, one of those subjects that requires, there's a lot to unfold. And there's a lot of envelopes to different things. And most likely there's going to be a part three to this one because, again, we want to talk about the uncut truth. And we want to hit every pillar. We want to touch on every pillar, everything that makes up this whole entire circle of ignorance, right? And in the first one, I didn't. There was a lot of names that I didn't mention, and of course, you know, I don't have to do the privy of name dropping, just because of the aspect that, as I mentioned before, just to paint a picture for you, is that just think of your favorite celebrity. Think of their wealth. Think of, what they bring in and how they bring in what they bring in. And then also think about them as a human being. Meaning, think about the elements and the capabilities of the human essence and the human vessel. Meaning the low vibrational things. Meaning the things behind closed doors. Right? The things that you may see in the news that when you look at the picture of a person, you say, oh, that's a degenerate. And that's why they did what they did. But then you also have that uncut truth about our life and the human vessel, and that is there are people like John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, guys like those, Triple H. Holmes, guys like that were seamlessly, upstanding gentlemen according to their social status. But behind closed doors, they were doing some of the most horrific things imaginable. Now, of course, this kind of situation takes things to a different level because it's more geared towards sexual behavior. And just like most people like to enjoy themselves and party and have fun, drink, when it comes to a celebrity lifestyle, or when it comes, and we say celebrity, right? I think it's kind of a term that I probably need to just redact that one. But let's talk about people who have prestigious wealth because of their occupation. With that being said, these people, you know, kind of similar to how people are, when they are in the military. They have to separate themselves from from us average Joes, right? Just because, you know, the way you make your money, how you make your money, it molds a different circle for you. And if you're anybody who's extremely successful, or should I say extremely wealthy, you got that wealth from being around a certain group of people. The same group of people like to have fun. They like to do the same English shit that the average Joe like to do. And so they do these things in privacy, but not necessarily privacy, that we may consider just within the confines of their own home, but they do this. They do these things within a controlled environment, privacy, right? And as I mentioned in part one, you know, go look up Studio 57. That's how, it was kind of like the locked door parties in New York back in the days. And look, write down everything I'm telling you, that I'm saying, that I mentioned, and go look these things up one day at a time by yourself. And I promise you, it will enlighten you. And you'll be like, no way. Now, some of the things that you're going to pull up and come across are going to be things that are not suitable for children. So don't pull these things up around children. But look up locked door party, locked door strip club party. Once again, these going, it may, and you may have to add things like triple X or adults, right? For you to pull these things up. And so I got a whole episode coming about that. But these things, those things are the same thing that these people are doing when they are in confines to their own company. And that are people who have the same classism of wealth that, to a degree, right? Which kind of means that, hey, if you're a multi-millionaire, I only want to hang with millionaires, and that's kind of the mentality that classism does to people. You know, now there's a rightfully truth to that. For as in order to continue building your wealth, you have to be in a position to where you are being around those who can help you maintain and grow. With that being said, a lot of celebrities, a lot of celebrities and big political names, they be having these little parties, right? And they have these things that they have going on, and it leads to a lot of ungodly things, and that is assault and abuse, you know. But what's been very unfortunate, especially to the black man, is that they have been witch hunted the most when it regards to it. Whenever you see someone like Jeffrey Epstein, all of a sudden starts to get the hanger or the rope, let me tell you what's going on with that. Usually there's typically something either going on in their life personally, whether it's a health issue, you know, where they don't, where they're very sick, and they typically don't feel that they feel they're going to be around much longer. They're not going to be around much longer, and so a lot of the retribution that they begin to feel that they want to pay the victims and stuff like that, they begin to do. Too, a lot of these guys all be having lawsuits pending and have been pending for years and years and years, sometimes decades, and it just becomes just due. Like at some point, you have to pay these victims, right? That's what be happening. So by the time we see it, by the time it gets on the news, by the time it becomes a viral thing, this is something that has already been at works for more than 10 years, most likely. And that's just about with every case that you guys see. It already has been at work for a number of years, but then all of a sudden, it becomes viral because at some point, you're in court and then there is going to be some reporter, some uh, paparazzi that's going to get a hold of it, and to minimize how people who work in that field of being paparazzis, to minimize how much they get paid to leak something that nobody else heard, it begins to be, the documents are unsealed or allowed to be viewed by the public. But then again, there's a process of, a Freedom of Information Act where anyone can get this kind of information if it's unsealed. But again, a judge can seal these things and these documents, but not all, right? Because sometimes, again, people who work in that field of being paparazzis, where they could get a six-figure payday for some info, right? These are hackers. These are people who are well versed and well digested in technology sometimes, and they scour the internet, they scour the dark web for things that they come across, and they will search tooth and nail until they get it. And so, in the first one, I didn't really break down some of the, just giving you a general idea of what's going on in these kind of events, right? Or I hate to call them events, right? Like there's some kind of once a year kind of thing, because they're not. They are consistent, you know, get-togethers. It's just kind of like, you, let's just say, you throw a barbecue for your friends and your family every month. That's what those things are. That's what it is, right? And and so this whole uh, document of a black book just basically entails people that he had contact information on. That's just as general as that. And so, in fairness, just because someone has your contact information, doesn't mean that you are involved in any of the uh, unsatisfactory, or shall I say, lifestyle that is looked down upon. However, what it does mean is that you do business with that person to some degree. You have done business with them, or you do business with them to some degree. But most importantly, especially when you begin to be someone who is tagged and labeled as being the person. So what makes the the Epstein things and billionaires like him, what makes their the things they do very significant, uh, is that these guys typically have their own section of property on a island. And I haven't really looked up Epstein's, haven't really looked up his how much he owned, but a lot of those guys typically own a large majority of those properties, or a large majority of the land, right? So one thing that's going to make you really, one thing that you can look up that's going to make you really get a great insight to what goes on is the documentary of Peter Nygaard. There is a documentary. Now, again, some of this stuff was filmed back in like the '90s. Back when they were very. Uh, there was so much going on back then. I mean, even then, but the fearless of repercussion was so minimal back then that they didn't care about reporters coming and videoing what they did. And Peter Nygaard was one of those guys. He's one of those billionaires uh, in the same you know same construct as Epstein's and many others. And he owned, I think, like half of he owned maybe about 30% of a island. And then there's another billionaire that owned another 30%, and then there's another 30% to another billionaire. And I'll put the links and everything, and I'll send them, and you'll be able to look them up. But there's a documentary on Peter Nygaard, and he is also one of those guys who has just been convicted recently and has to pay restitution and for sexual assault, battery, abuse, rape of underage women at the time that he was dealing with them. And when I tell you his documentary really breaks down exactly, it gives you a huge insight of what was transpiring, everything you may have heard about Epstein and what they were doing, right? And it really kind of broke down to basically what they was doing was they would throw parties, have fun, maybe after a Grammy award, maybe after a Guild award, maybe after whatever they had going on. It could be something random, but within that, the people that will be invited would also be, you may have well-known politicians and celebrities invited. They're just there to come and hang out. But most importantly, the people that will be there for the appetizers and the fun and just to be included into what we got. Just say, these billionaires, they invite a bunch of their friends. Like, hey, I'm throwing a party on the 15th. Come through. I'm throwing a party after the Guild Awards. And as you begin to invite all of these people, you begin to notice there's either couples and a lot of different, and more, and a lot of men. So also within that, you don't want a party. You don't have people at your residence just sitting there hanging around, right? They there for a reason. And the biggest thing is that adults being satisfied to whatever significance of what that means for them. That being said, you have entertainment. You may have some, you may have strippers come through, male, female, whatever, whatever they like. But in that same breath, you would also have maybe servers, uh, people that are servers, and that would be so with Peter Nygaard. So let me break it down like this, right? With Peter Nygaard's thing, he would have uh, he would get a lot of young women from Africa who wanted to be models. He would invite them, he would pick them out however he chose them, invite them to, he would have another African woman who he had hired to do his bidding for him. You know, this woman would bring young women to him, and they would, work as fashion models for him. But at the same time, as they're working for fashion models, they are also kind of like, his servants and people that, did services for him. Within them being fashion models, and promises for them to get a great fashion gig or be on a magazine, he will make them do certain things. Because again, he's the man with the money. And see, this is why that whole sugar daddy stuff should not be celebrated the way it is. This whole, you know, and I don't think people understand just how much you are also indulging in that energy when you talk about that. Sugar daddy, sugar mama, you know, not even realize it. Yeah, it sounds innocent because you may not truly mean it, right? But the point is, there are real life people being assaulted, being put in situations, being put in, uncomfortable situations where they feel like they can't refuse, or their life may be on the line because now you're in a room, with this guy, you know, and you can't get out the room, right? Unless you feel that you have to fight this person. And who wants to be in a squabble? Most women don't, especially young women who are, you know, not are not of that caliber. And so, of course, that's usually the women that they go after. They don't go and think about it, right? Look at how 1 plus 1 makes 2. You never see the ratchet women as think about this, right? As much sexual assault that we see go on, you think about the concept of it, like, how is this a recurrence thing when you do have a whole culture of women who are willing to lay down and do whatever, but they don't want those types. Reason why is because a lot of those types are typically willing to fight you back. Like if they're uncomfortable about something, or if there's something don't, they got a mouth on them, right? They got a mouth on them, or just being around them may be very uncomfortable if shit get weird for them, you know. And so they target vulnerable women who are very docile and are enamored, because there's a lot of women. There's a culture of women out here, and men who are, they docile, they very humble. They're not, they're not trying to fight nobody, but they are also enamored by the highlight of being named in the skylights, or named in the magazines, or named on the billboards, or just being able to be in a room where they're around celebrities. Those are the people they target, you know? And we're at the age of awakening to where that type of bullshit now has to be put in check. It has to be called out. Those women have to be supported. Those men have to be supported, because it's been going on since the beginning of time. But we are at a new horizon. And because of that, within that, there's so much other chaos going on. And it's coming with the territory of it. But yeah, Peter Nygaard, if you look up that documentary, I'll leave that in the notes. You will get a great idea, because the documentary, they actually have the guys in there on with their camcorders, and they recording what's going on. Like, they having fun, they having parties. It's just like a little get together, pool party. And keep in mind, right? You think about this on a smaller scale. A lot of your rappers do this now. A lot of your local rappers, they do it. Have these little low key, they have pool parties and have things at their house. Like, why you need everybody in your presence like that, right? But they do that because low key there are things that's going on that you know don't ask, don't tell, and it's because who I am, or it's because what I got. These men and these women, they know that they can just about get any man or woman, or some men or some women, and but the numbers is greater than none, to just have fun and do whatever with them, regardless of their age, and they don't have an age limit, and that's what becomes very despicable about it. Uh, is that they don't have an age limit. They don't care they don't care if it's a human or an animal. They get everybody hooked on drugs, hooked up on whatever. They have the party favors for whatever to fit whatever anybody wants to do, what they want to do, or how they want to do it. And it's presented in the name of, this is who I am. This is how you gonna remember me. This is how and why you would do business with me. And don't ask, don't tell. Let's have fun. And that is what's going on. My theories on what happened to Jeffrey Epstein, is I have two theories. Well, three. He either, and again, it's just three because this is the uncut truth. He either really committed suicide out of fear, or knowing, or just kind of out of fear of knowing that he doesn't truly have the money to fight whatever he's going to have to face. And whatever he was going to have to face is going to be very, very significant than the way things have ever been presented, right? Meaning that there's so much more uh, diabolical things that went on, that have been going on, and that a lot of people have done. Again, you got people, these are not the people that's on his list, on his party list, or people that's in his black book, or people that visit his island, or, again, these are not just only United States of American people. These are people who are from diplomatic positions in other countries. Yes, most countries, to be exact. Africa. I've seen some African constituents on there. I've seen uh, some from Hong Kong, and you name it. So he either really committed suicide because what would have to be revealed would be so much more deeper than, like his life, to the fact that his life was worth being gone. Now, hold that last statement, what I said, because we do know that he's gone from here. Well, at least we were told that. My second theory is this man has had enough money to where he can truly disappear. You know how I know this? Jake Steve done it. Hey, Jake Steve done it. Jake Steve disappeared. If those know about Jake Steve, yeah, hey, this gonna be a little bit candid and kind of funny part to this. Jake Steve is gonna be a little funny. For those that know, Jake Steed is Jake Steed was one of the old school uh, adult video guys way back in the day. He had this whole entire uh, series, and he titled it "Free Codes and Flows." So now I brought that up because Jake Steed ain't never been heard from again. I think right back in early 2000s, he kind of vanished. Word was he had some tax issues and tax problems and tax troubles. Now, what kind of tax problems he could have been in is beyond me, right? Because he could not have, in my opinion, he could not have been in that much tax trouble. This guy was a, keep in mind, this back in the 90s, this back in the 90s. So it's not like these guys, I mean, unless he owed 100K, 200K or something like that. Now again, back in those days, if you owe that kind of money for taxes, that's serious money. But now that's just the rumor, right? But what kind of, but again, what kind of tax problems could somebody like Jake Steve been in that nobody else, none of the other guys in the industry was in? So I think there's a little bit more to that story. I think there's a lot more to that story. And but the word is he fled to Cuba, and he basically been out of the country and hadn't been back ever since. I find that hard to believe. Uh, I think something, my theory with that story, I think something happened to Jake. I think he may have been a victim of homicide, and it was just kind of covered up. That's just my opinion. I don't see tax problem from a porn star. I don't see that. Nah, doesn't mean it ain't possible. But the point of what I'm saying is that supposedly he dipped out of America and ain't been seen since. And that's just an example, but there are a list of many people who have committed crimes in wherever they are in the world, and have either faked their death or fled to other countries and are never seen from again. This same, prognosis could be, in a state of where he's in witness protection. This could be something very, very real as well. Again, because these are things we don't particularly know. We know what they tell us. They told us that the man killed himself. They found him hanging, found him unresponsive, whatever. But we hadn't heard nothing about an autopsy. Uh, I hadn't done the due diligence or work or to try to see if anybody pulled any kind of report, associated with that. But I doubt it, Uh, but again, that's my second theory. My second theory either is that, he's not dead. Supposedly his net worth with him and Griselle, um, he has enough money to kind of hide out, you know, be in his own shell, to be moved into another facility or another place and just be in total incognito, uh, with the kind of money he got. It wouldn't be unheard of for him to change his entire appearance in general. I mean, with the way plastic surgery has become very uh, prominent with this technology. You know, person like him, he can completely get in the gym for a year, change his body structure, change his body shape, change his facial structure through plastic surgery, change his hair color, and you know, and if he just so happened to have a resemblance, people may just look at it as, oh, they're just a resemblance. He just resembled him, right? It doesn't mean that that's him. It just means, you know, he just resembled him. And so you have that. And so my third theory is that also aligns with him being deceased, but someone, you know, that him being deceased was not by his own hands, you know, and that just kind of happened merely because there was just too much at stake in regards to his namesake and who he is, what has been going on, and what has begun to be exposed for the last 5 years. Now that last theory, I will hold on to that as a small 5%, only because the wife's still living. Girlfriend, whatever she is, right? She's still living. Nothing happened to her. Whatever he knows, she knows, right? So that one seems very detailed, and that means we should pay very close to that, because he truly if he truly killed himself, and I know this kind of don't mean anything because people do it all the time, and they have significant others, they have whole families, and still kind of, you know, and still just be wanting to leave this place. But we're not talking about somebody who's dead on their luck, dead on their ass, don't have no money. You know, we're not talking about that. We're talking about someone who has multi-millions as a network. So for him to want to vanish, just take himself away from the world would mean that, and you know, and of course that kind of gives strength to the third to a degree, right? Kind of gives strength to that someone had him murdered, and Griselle is just falling in line. They probably already went to her and said, hey, his situation is probably a little different because by him being convicted and by, you know, there's so much that's already been exposed in that intel that are just, he had to go. But in closing, I'm going to tell y'all this, right? It's time for the separation. It's time for the awakening. It's time for us to really truly see the light and see human beings for who they are. It's time to see the very destructiveness of the human vessel and how evil it is and evil it can be. See, the human vessel is very capable of the most heinous acts imaginable that you can even think of. And we are at the age to where, when once upon a time, when that mentality was very far and few, and you really would have to scour the earth to find certain situations and be like, yo, I want to analyze why this person was acting like this. We now have to sit and think why the majority of people are acting like this. And I know that's a bold statement to say, especially a big word to say majority, but that is what's happening. Think about all of the sadistic things you can think of, from pedophilia to bestiality to rape, murder, sex with family members, sex with children, sex with animals, killing killing people, killing animals, killing children. Majority of people have become, have succumbed to this, especially in North America. Now we don't count out South America because Mexico don't get no goddamn pass by no goddamn means. But the point is, there's been a huge shift. It has yet to be exposed what's triggering this thing, whether it's the Earth's magnetic field or if it's the food. But it's one or the other, and or it's the combination. But one of the biggest things is that there is strength in positivity. Positive energy overrides negative energy all day, every day. It's more powerful than it. And it's especially more powerful than it in numbers. So when you see someone standing up for righteousness, support them. When you see someone standing up for righteousness, and it's important to underline what righteousness is, right? And that is, if someone committed cold-blooded murder, and just because it's their son, they want to see them free. That don't mean you get on the same bandwagon with that person because they want to see their child or son free. No, you have to be held accountable for your actions. You should be held accountable for your actions. Now we could Bible thump this, and we can go into religion aspects of it and dissect it. Well, God will be the judge. No, you need to be the judge here on this earth, because what the reason that so many things have become so mundane and have become desynthesized is that everything has been left up to a outer realm that we don't even know exists. They don't care about going to jail. They don't care about being caught. They don't care about doing these things now, because it has gotten glorified and has also been desynthesized because it's been, there's been so many people who do not back righteousness. You know, they've even created a term, snitches get stitches, right? We've even created that. And these things have been happening. Like, people have been getting murdered before they even testify. And you think about this. I just think about the essentialness of that whole position. If I committed a murder or committed a crime, if I get caught, first of all, it's my fault if I get caught. Let's put it. Let's just dive into a little bit dark matter of this shit for a minute. It's my fault if I get caught. So whether somebody is a witness to it or not, it's my fault that there was a witness to it. But then the fact that I'm that afraid to be in jail, but I committed this crime. Think about it. But then I'm so afraid to be in jail that I want to kill the witness, or I want to hurt the witness, and things like that. Think about how undesirable and delinquent that is as a human being. Pure ignorance at its finest. You might as well not have done whatever you did in the first place. And whatever the case may have been, you should have just walked off. Or just chalked it up to the game. Hey, it is what it is. That's what happened. This is how it is. This is what our interaction is as human beings. But I just move on. But I know it's kind of getting off on another subject. But I just want to say this. Check out those documentaries. Peter Nygaard, I tell you, he's been convicted in court. We don't know. Look, he's a billionaire as well. He may not do no time. We don't know. You know what I'm saying? You know, like conviction. You know, the way things are now, convictions don't mean a damn thing either. Because people like that, they don't go into general population, or they don't go into a jail where they are around Pookies and Ray Rays. You know, so there's a scope, a whole different scope of this, and that's why the Epstein's death in general definitely does lean towards somebody did that. They murdered him intentionally. But what I do say is that the truth will be revealed. It's about to be revealed because it's time for the separation. I'm your host, Sam J. And this is the Uncut Truth. I want you guys to stay firm on your beliefs, stay firm on righteousness, stay firm on supporting your friends and your family, whatever endeavors they got. Stay holding everyone accountable for their actions. I promise you, we'll make this world a better place.